One generation, this could all change.
One generation. That's all it takes to change the world.
We have the power.
But what would that world look like?
Everything is ultimately going to either be a disruptor and continue the path that we want, or be a distractor and go back to old ways. And we get to ultimately choose what that gets to look like.
Life strategist and business mentor Nadine Muller is on intentional living, talking about just that.
I'm on a big mission. I'm on a bold mission. This is fierce.
Diving deep into a discussion of energetic balance.
When we bring the whole element of spirit, of intuition, of feminine leadership, and the masculine, that is where the magic actually happens.
Parenting with purpose.
It's that changes more than just this life.
And embracing our unparalleled power.
When people realize how powerful they are, then they have a responsibility to do something with them.
On an all-new Intentional Living with Courtney Myers. Welcome to Intentional Living with Courtney Myers, a podcast dedicated to those seeking a more fulfilled and purposeful life through thought-provoking conversation, spiritual exploration, and authentic connections. The intentional movement has begun, and if you found yourself here, you are a part of it. Intentional Living with Courtney Myers starts now. Hi, Nadine. Welcome to Intentional Living with Courtney Myers. All of a sudden, I'm in my head after we were just talking about pronunciations and your name. And I'm like, wait, did I do it right? Nadine, I got it. So, yay. Welcome to the show. I am so happy we get to just have this conversation and flow today. So thank you for joining me.
And thank you so much, Courtney, for inviting me on. This is very exciting. And I just know that we're going to have an incredible, beautiful, deep dive.
We are. And those are my favorites. I love to go deep. I like to go deep right off the bat. I'm like, I don't know you. We don't know each other, but let's just go into the nitty gritty because it's just, 100%. That's my jam. So
I'm about it.
Awesome. So with that in mind, the thing is, you take people into healing. You are a healer to the core. But I love the fact, as a healer, you talk about healing yourself first. And we all have to go through all these things in life that tend to make us resilient. Yet I question whether that resilience is really what we need. It's like we almost need to go in and get this healing. And so often it's like, okay, I can do that. I did it. I moved past whatever event in our life happened, which I know you've had a ton and I want to hear all about them. But we feel like we can just move past them and not have to deal with them. But that is no, we need to actually deal with this shit. So what is the power of healing and walking through that fire in that way?
Yeah. I just even love this conversation, how you've just hit it straight off the bat with it, because this is, if we're going to talk about, one of the biggest global issues or there's a lot in this world right now. However, we're going to, specifically speak about women right now and keeping things, repressed or not speaking out or, having that healing, well and truly in a backpack that that's later. That's a later thing. I'm too busy. I'm mothering. I'm running businesses. I'm doing whatever. It is all of that. At some point that comes to the surface, and whether or not we like to face it or we go, I have to because I'm seeing how it's triggering every area of my life or it's blocking me from certain things. When a woman comes to us at this point and goes, I am willing and I am ready to face the woman in the mirror and willing to draw the line in the sand and do what to do in order to move forward in my life, it's a pretty beautiful junction. Also a very scary one. And though I think it's a very liberating time, and I see this, I often talk about how this can either be someone's, limitation where they just go, no, that's something in the backpack, that's something I'll deal with later. And for most people, they'll never deal with it. If we're going to talk about general society, most people won't ever. They'll go to the grave with that, right? Yeah. However, and unfortunately, that often creates then intergenerational passing down of things that weren't cleared within ourselves, right? And so what I love is when a woman comes to us at this point and goes, I am willing, I am ready. And again, as I mentioned to you, facing that woman in the mirror to do that. And, it's not always kind. It's not always pretty. However, it's the most liberating work that we can do.
looking yourself in the mirror, that is so big. We do not see ourselves. Even when we're in the space of healing, even when we're willing, we feel like we're willing to go there sometimes. Like, I've been on my spiritual journey for years and years and years. I talk to experts on the show all the time. We're doing this stuff, yet sometimes it's like, even with all the knowledge or knowing that it's going to open up avenues for us, it's hard to do the work. It's hard to face ourselves in the mirror. And even if we know how beneficial it is, like, I can't tell you the healing I had when I went through like my first breathwork training, the insights, the things that opened up, like how my life expanded and changed after that. So amazing. Yet I've never gone back to it. Like, why don't we do it?
It's so interesting, isn't it? I think that's the human experience, and that's that part of us that goes, oh. And you brought up a really great point. It's also being in the realm or being in a safe space that allows for that next evolution or the next level of healing growth to be passed through or traversed. And particularly for those that have been on the journey, have already awakened, or have been on the path and have been for a very long time, often because they're so used to holding their energy and they have so much capacity to hold that, and they're doing that for so many, that ability for them to actually do it or meet their next junction is another layer of willingness again. So, and then that ability, if you're sitting in the healer's space, or if you're sitting in the, I facilitate this space, or I'm holding that space for others, to then put yourself in a caliber of other women or men or, facilitators or healers to hold you through it. They've got to be willing to hold that for you. So especially if you are sitting at potent, for us, people that hold us need to hold us at a very, very open, potent, powerful level, right?
Yeah. So, I mean, literally, we're like just like tearing these layers back, and we're going deeper and deeper. And as we get deeper into this healing, because as you and I both know, it never ends. Like, are we ever truly healed? Are we ever truly actually? That's not the human experience. That's not what we're here for. That's not realistic. I think when we come into this awakening or we come into our spiritual journey, we think, oh, we are going to heal ourselves and become this next level version of ourselves, which is true. But I think we think like we're going to reach this level and like, oh, we're all good. And I think that's the thing is like, oh, wait, yeah, this never ends. But do we have to just like find someone? Layer. Yeah. So is it just finding that next level, continuously finding that next level facilitator that can truly hold the space for us that helps?
Look, I'm also, and I know you all agree with this, it's also the life experience that we're going on is always gifting us the invitation for the next level healing that we're ready for, right? So, nothing by coincidence or chance. We're going to land in the spaces that, whether we know it or not, we're ready to either face it or ready to go, hey, I'm going to sit here in this space for the moment, allow this space to integrate until the next, evolution of the layering or the shedding. So, again, whether we look at it as a thing of, yes, in this lifetime and this experience, it doesn't end. It just gets to keep going. However, it's up to also us to go, okay, I've arrived at this space. This is literally happening in my time. I've called this next thing in. What invitation does that require me to meet now? And am I willing to meet that?
So there's like no roadmap, really. There's no rules when it comes to this. Like, it's just kind of like what falls into your lap and taking that step.
I think you've hit that nail on the head. There are no rules. And whenever I've said to those that we mentor on a spiritual level, if they've entered into spaces or places where there are rules, and that's like the abort that mission, unsubscribe from that space, because there is no rules. If anyone, and especially when we look at the journey that is spirit, everyone's deity or everyone's, version of what spirit gets to be looks different, right? It's super unique. Even those that within their realm and their space, whether it's God, angel, source, high spirit, however, even within those capsules are then all nuanced as well. So we can never go that's a rule and that's a rule. Of course there's rules between all of them. However, rules when you apply those, right? Rather than someone else going, this is a rule. And I think that's what I love when we unlayer the spirit. We unlayer that part of us, that the exposure of that spirit.
Mm. I think you're speaking to me right now. And I will say, usually these podcasts are channeled messages for me personally. Yes. I have said this multiple times because this is something personally I've been dealing with. You know, I am stuck in a position right now. Like, I've written so many books for other people. I've written my own books and I'm refusing to put out there right now because it's like, that's not my message right now that I want to put out. And I had this epiphany a couple nights ago, and my husband was so pissed at me because I kept him up all night, like waking him up. Wait, this is what's going on, you know, shaking him, and then he couldn't go back to sleep. And I just went back. I had my epiphany and went straight back to sleep. I'm like, I'm good now. I got it out. And he's like up for 2 hours, like, seriously? But like, I feel like I'm being boxed into this space. You have to write this book for this, or you have to think of like, you have to create this program for this, or you have to do it in this order. And I'm just kind of like, everything in my spirit, in my soul, everything in me is fighting against it. And I know that that's what's blocking me from doing it. That resistance is theirs because you can't box me into this one message of this is who I am. I'm not a message. I'm a messenger.
No. Oh, I just love that. Yes. And even what I just saw visually of the message that was contained, that you get to go, no, this isn't where there's four walls. This isn't where there's a gate. I have the key. In fact, I am the master key. I get to walk that.
Yes. But there's so much, because I mean, you deal with the spiritual work also in a business space. There's so much of the world that is the structured world. And like, women will come to you to expand their business or grow their coaching or whatever they're working on. And I feel like there's so many people out there that are telling you have to do it this way, or there are these rules. And I wonder why. Why are we feeling like we have to follow these certain paths when each of us are bringing our own unique message and messaging, and we are all our own messengers, and we are going to resonate with the people we resonate with? Yet we feel like we have to follow the structure.
Yeah. And you know, it's not that I love structure. I love a good structure. In order to be in the divine of both your feminine and your masculine, you know, the masculine is structure. The masculine is the doing energy, and that is amazing. And though, even more specifically, you know, the feminine, and where you're speaking into, is that desire to create from intuition, that desire to trust the unknown of what that looks like outside of the box, the willingness, if we're going to talk about willingness again, to go, I don't have the answers, and though I'm willing to take the steps. And when I do that and trust in my feminine, the next step is going to be appearing. You know, when I walk the way suddenly appears. And so hence why, specifically for those that work with us, you know, in an energetic business space as well, or they're entrepreneurs that haven't yet into their spirit side. And this is where I go, oh my goodness, I am so excited, because once they do, we all know that business is a very spiritual journey. And the reason why I say that is because you are going to come across so many beautiful roadblocks, so many like, holy, this is just a huge personal, you know, like you just come across so many things. And if you don't have that next, you know, available space outside of you that is within you, you're missing a whole area of support in your business other than the structure and the strategy and everything else in business, right? And that's why I love bringing it. Yes, you know, and again, you've said it before, the strategy part is important. Let's not deny that, you know, business is built on systems and strategy and all of that as well. However, when we bring the whole element of spirit, of intuition, of feminine leadership, and the masculine, that is where the magic actually happens.
I love that, because we talk a lot about stepping into our divine feminine on the show and being empowered as women, because I feel like we've been repressed for so long. Yet I always fight against this idea that I'm a feminist, even though I guess technically I am by the conversations we have, because I don't want to downplay the masculine. And we're not talking male,
No.
female, but having a strong masculine in your life. Now, I feel like for me, like I've been brought up in that masculine energy because I'm a firstborn daughter. And a lot of times that happens and it's just kind of in me. So sometimes I need to work on bringing that feminine aspect out a lot more. But I will realize it wasn't until I found my masculine, my husband, that's real, true masculine support on that emotional level that allowed me to feel safe in my femininity and bring that balance together and finally step into my purpose. And I know you do a lot of work like that by bringing in the feminine and the masculine energy. And I think we're talking so much about the feminine these days. How do we also embody that masculine to bring that balance and coherence together?
So awesome question, because particularly with us and on our retreats, we have on our women's retreats, we have divine masculine men facilitators to support the safety of the masculine within the realms of the women healing on retreat. Conversely, on our men's retreat, we bring in the divine feminine to support them on healing their wounds as a result of, or from their feminine line, mother line, grandmother line, whatever. So, and we often, it's so interesting because we still get every now and then, hang on, why are women on men's retreats? Hang on, why are men on women's retreats? Hang on a second. However, that is why we have the results that we have. And that is why people are truly traversing some big things, because we're bringing in both. And so, life according to me and those that love energetic work and love, the divine, between both of the energy types, knowing what you were saying before, it's not gender specific. Yes, we have our dominant energy force. However, we get to ride in both. We get to beautifully have flexibility in both. And more than ever, and, when you were saying, we're always talking about feminist likes things here, I'm actually also hugely putting my hand up going, let's not forget the masculine as the feminine.
Yeah.
Let us remember that the masculine part of the woman in the feminine is incredible. This is where that power, the purpose, the passion can also be delivered, right? Let us remember both is required. And if anything, if we're going to define the true divine, we have to be able to have access to both. And so, yes, there's a huge push for only feminine leadership. I run a very, very incredible company that is absolutely, there is a lot of time that it is feminine led. However, there is still a lot of times where I very much flow within a masculine leadership space as well as the feminine.
Yeah. I mean, and even just thinking that, I'm feeling this, if we really want to truly embody this oneness, we are one, we have to balance our feminine and masculine. That is the only way to do it. And it's not down with the masculine. I mean, I have a son and a daughter. I have a husband. I have a sister. We have them both in our life, and we can see how it plays different roles in our experience. And growing up in a family, I just had a sister, I only knew, we were very female based. I can see the imbalance. And this is not about gender again. I could just feel the feminine overtaking my father and the masculine, that energy. It's almost like closing off his throat chakra, closing off his voice, because we took up so much of that. So it's really interesting to be in a dynamic now, where I have a young son and a daughter and my husband, and we're both open to this work, how it flows so differently. Now, I know you have 2 sons and a husband. So how does that work for you?
Yeah. So, and again, this is where when we have that flexibility to flow between both, right? And I have this, again, I love being in femme. However, there is part of me, to call favorites, I actually also love the masculine so much. And it makes complete sense to me. Let us be okay with saying that. I love the masculine, right?
Yes.
And because now more than ever, if you were to just spend 20 minutes scrolling on Instagram, it's going to be all about the feminine. And I love that too. So it's just, can we also nourish and remember the potency and the power of both energy types? Because again, without it, if we're going to talk about the universal law of oneness or oneness in its whole in terms of spirit, then it requires both. So again, for me, it makes absolute complete, there's no coincidence or chance why I'm, raising young boys, why also there was a lot of, in my lineage of the masculine, required healing that I'm also raising. And so part of my, I guess my purpose has been to raise little men to support that change. And hence why so much of our men's work is such a huge pillar and mission of ours, because when we heal the masculine and we have more men that are beautifully in their divine masculine, then we are bringing home women in their safety of their feminine so much faster. I truly believe that it's the men that lead that will bring that safety of the feminine home faster.
That's so fascinating, because I was just thinking, it's like when I see a man open up to his healing space, it makes me feel more healed. It makes me feel more whole.
Yes.
Like it makes me feel better. So what is that? Is it just giving him the space to heal so that he can feel what is happening there? I guess, is it him letting him heal allows him to hold the space for us to feel safe as feminine?
Correct. Because then it allows the woman to take off, if we're going to talk about it from even metaphysical, like they've taken off that crown of having to do the masculine all the time, because the masculine has risen up to theirs, right? And then it allows us to soften and allows us to actually feel that safety. And because we run retreats and workshops and all that, like we have so much evidence of women just going, you know what, hands up, I do not feel safe in the feminine. Don't feel safe in the masculine, and I've lived the masculine so much, this is just the rewrite that we're hearing over and over again, that they don't even know what it's like to be in the feminine.
Yeah.
Right? So this is why I'm big on going, where if we push our incredible men's work and we create leaders in the men's work space, the faster we can actually heal both. And again, if I want to talk about it from energy types, because the masculine, that is the lead. The feminine is the flow. The feminine is the creation, right? So if we allow that leadership to happen and we allow the divine feminine to also beautifully flow in that, do you see how that is the symbiotic relationship?
Yes. I'm just like really, as you can probably see, like there's so much coming into me right now, because I'm feeling this, like, we talk so much about the feminine right now and women coming back to that. Yet we are missing a piece in talking about the masculine, because one cannot heal without the other. And truly, when we find the men that step into the space, that is where I think the change really has to happen. Yes, we can start to embody the feminine. Yes, we can find more women leaders. Yet we can't do it all. It's not just all on our own. And that's the crock of shit. I think we've been told as women, we can do it all. And now it's like coming up to this whole thing that's like, no, we don't need to have it all. And so why would we treat our healing or our growth any differently?
Correct, Courtney. Like this is magic to my ears. These are the conversations that it's like, for some people, they're like, hang on a second. No, this is a whole paradigm. What do you mean? Right. But here's the thing. The rise of the woman power is just actually creating this to be a bigger concern. And if we don't actually challenge this notion that, and again, I'm all about it. Woman power, Beyonce, let's go. Let's do the thing. At the same time, though, by doing that at the intensity that we're doing it, at the pace that we're doing it, this skeweth, divine balance that ain't balance no more. This actually, what is that doing? It's allowing our men to further sit into their feminine. However, instead of a divine feminine, it's a wounded feminine, because the women are on the rise for the masculine.
Yeah. I mean, even when you're saying that, it's like, if we're like rise women, it's like, that is just so masculine. That is just so against what the divine feminine is.
Actually is. Yes. And then we are creating even more of a polarity of what we actually want with that wholeness. So are we saying less feminine leaders? No. Like, of course we can still have feminine, like, absolutely. We've got to, we've come so far as women. We've got a lot more work to do on a grand scale. When we look at things on an International Women's Day platter, we can see that we're advancing in so many incredible ways, and there's still so much beautiful work there to do. However, let us be very specific, intentional, and almost paradoxical, and at the same time making sure that we have precision on how we do not tip the scales.
Yeah. And I think what gets confusing is it's not like we're talking about women aren't allowed to have rights. It's not like we're not allowed to have our power. It's just like, what is our divine energetic flow? Like, how do we show up in the world? And do we want more women leaders? Yes, because I feel like we want to see things, decisions made, and the compassion and the just intuitive advice that women can bring to the table. But so often when we think of the rise of women, we want women to be men in these positions. And that is actually exactly what we don't want. I know in the States, we're coming up on an election year. And, there have been women running, and I've never felt drawn to many of them, not for lack of thinking that we could really benefit in the States from having a female leader, but it's the type of women that are trying to step into the space. They're very in their masculine. Because they have to be part of that boys club for that power struggle. And that's like so against what we're talking about here.
It's so interesting because whilst there's that overarching, conversation, the level of the people, everyone feels this. Everyone is like, like this is it. Where, again, you could just keep on going with it. However, this is where, where we're all doing this beautiful work, and where we're all coming back home to self and having our spiritual awakening, which is why we love spirit work. Mm-hmm. That is where these realizations and these awakenings and these hang on a second, what is my radical responsibility of self, and where can I actually take my own, awareness and knowledge of this and actually lead myself in order to change that? And it all starts in our own homes, and our home being ourselves.
So how are you starting this in your home with your little boys?
Yeah. What I love is that right now they actually see it and model it. So I've got an 8-year-old, almost 9, and then a 4-year-old turning 5. So he actually sees. So we're traveling. We're one of those families that travel around our country like in an RV, doing the Aussie outback thing at the moment. We've been doing that for a couple of years. So we're homeschooling our kids at the moment whilst doing that, obviously in entrepreneurship, business, running retreats, doing all the things. So they're literally, and again, whilst I love the aspect of teaching and explaining to them things, what we all know that they learn the best of is actually modeling and watching and witnessing. So they're witnessing this dance, if you will, of the masculine and the feminine within their mother, and the masculine and the feminine within their father. And they're seeing this beautiful, symbiotic relationship where, an energy's playing out, times where, mum's sitting in that role, right? And they more than seeing it. And we talk about it anyway. They're often in the background hearing our phone conversations or, our meetings anyway, right? They're seeing it in play. However, more than seeing it, they're feeling it, right? They can feel when a woman goes from, okay, I'm taking that hat off and I'm going from leader and boss to then, no, I'm nurturer, I'm mum. Outside of the mum doing energy, the mum in the being energy, right? Play, creation, time to be. Then, hey, mum is doing this and it's more power, boom, again, they're seeing, feeling and witnessing that play out in the home environment. Then, it's so awesome because we really do bring them along for the journey, and it's intentional at the same time. It's the life that we live. So of course, they come along because they also, we're away a lot of the time, or we're back home to retreats, and they get to be part of that. And they are around conversations where this is actually at play, conversations where the things that are being discussed at the table is like, hey, what are your thoughts on this? Or where is this happening? And they're hearing, we know the power of the conscious and the unconscious. They're hearing conversations that are happening. And especially for our 8-year-old, he's developing just beautifully, emotionally, spiritually actually as well. We're very much open to his own, decision making of how that gets to look like at his age, and how he gets to start his journey of spirit now, and how we can empower that and enable that. And so, even just being able to be those vessels or those spaces for our children when they get to ask those questions, and we get to go, hey, this is where this is at. I think it's more than ever as parents, right? And you've got both. So you've got the dynamic of both. However, for us, do you see how what I was mentioning before with the masculine, if I'm raising the masculine, they get to beautifully have access to both the masculine and their divine and see it, so they know how to actually acknowledge that.
I love it. I love when we can do that and bring it into our home. I think that's what we need more in raising our children. And I think that's kind of where this conscious parenting trend has kind of gone towards, but I don't know that we've totally got it, like for the majority, but that embodiment in the home, because we can do all the healing we want on ourselves so that we don't pass things on to our children, but it's really in that environment. And I love when I can see parents are raising their children like that. Like my kids are still very young. They're 2 and 4. And so it's like, it's really fun to like talk to them about spirit in the essence that they can handle it. Yet I also know they are probably more connected than I am because they haven't been conditioned out of it yet. And so it's like when they come to me with things, it's just kind of like, let's have a conversation. When my grandfather passed and my son started seeing him and talking about him, he barely could talk. He barely remembered him. He hadn't seen him since he was like 6 months old. It was just like, of course that's there. Why would I say no or don't be afraid? It's holding the space for them to grow into this. That I think is where we really change the world.
So I've got goosebumps, and part of our mission here is it's yes, we support the men and the women and the couples and the families. However, it's actually well beyond that, because imagine if just imagine if every parent, mom, dad, separately, if that's the relationship dynamic, went and did the work. We could, this is where I go, this is the most powerful spaces and places right now. If that we had leaders that were all leading work, that everyone went home and did that, we change the world in one generation. If only that could happen.
Yes.
Actually, and I agree, we're still irrespective, we're out here, being leaders and founders of some work that is really renowned right now. And we're still effing it up sometimes. We're still let's be honest. The other day, sometimes Dane and I, so my husband, so he runs the whole Heart-Led Warriors, which is our men's work specifically. And, we do big work. And sometimes we go, hang on a second, I said something. I'm actually going to revert what I said. And I'm going to say something else. And then I'm going to just actually speak about that to the boys later, because that's not how, let's talk about us after the fact, right? And we can do that at any time. And I think that's the whole point of the human experience, that it doesn't matter how much work you've done. It does not matter how much expanded consciousness that you believe that you're in or not. You're still going to have days where you're like, oh, am I now passing down a belief or something that I now need to undo, or am I going to do that anyway, irrespective? At some point.
It's so hard because I feel like, especially with all this knowledge, sometimes it's like you're trying, or we can even go back to the rules, like how we're supposed to do this with our children. It's like, God, I'm still fucking them up. We're still doing something wrong. And it's like, we can be so hard on ourselves, but literally this is the human experience. We need to go through these things. We need to have these lessons. I mean, if you really want to go into soul contracts and things like that, these kids chose us for a reason to have these experiences. So they're going to have them one way or another. So we need to give ourselves a little slack. But anytime we find someone that's like, I have all the answers, or I'm so expanded, my first mentor was kind of like that. She held all the keys. She held all the answers. And it became almost like this, it turned into almost like this cultish thing. And it's like,
Yeah. Wow.
all of a sudden I'm like, I had a distance because I'm like, something doesn't
Yeah.
feel right here. Anyone that's telling you there's rules, they have all the answers, they're not open to learning, growth, conversation, or surrounding themselves with the constant learning, walk away.
There's something. And that is literally why I said that at the start. You know, we have people that come to us that have been on many a retreat, or they're like, hey, can you just tell me the answer? And it's like, I would be doing you a disservice. I would be removing your experience. It's only with the lens of mine and the download. Like, again, this is where it like really pains us when people go, oh, I've really been scarred in other spaces and places because of that. And it's like, okay, you come here and we're going to empower you that you have your answers. And when you connect with your divine soul spirit, however that is, we're going to guide you on the path of whatever that looks like. However, and what I mentioned to you at the start of the call, you have the master key. And whatever that gets to look like, and through the own gates of your own life, because how about, and again, we could go so deep on this, but if you're up to your seventh lifetime, let us just remember that everyone's nuanced with however their experience and their soul's journey and where they're up to on theirs. Like, you could just keep going. And I think that's where everyone just has to have that, you know, whether we call it due diligence or it's that beautiful space of just trusting their intuition of, you know what, this place and space and mentor or coach or healer or wherever feels like home, this feels safe. I have a call to go towards that. I am feeling like that is the place where I wish to go next or track next. And it's just listening to that. And when you have a moment where you're like, you know what, this is no longer feeling expansive or feeling, you know, that it's free flowing or the energy is crystal clean, then you get to go, you know what, I just depart those spaces too whenever you choose.
Yeah. I mean, it's so important even to keep that in mind as we're raising our children. It's because it's like, whether it's a mentor, whether it's going to a healing space or I can't say the word facilitator like that. It's like we have this tendency to create false gods. We create false gods out of our parents because we look up to them in this space. And as parents, I think we need to, like we were saying, we mess things up. We need to open up that space even in our home. And that's where this all will begin, to like not pretend that we have all the answers. And I think so many of us were raised that way, that like we have these false gods in our life, that we think that like someone is going to have the answer, someone's going to have the solution, or we need to do exactly what they're doing. This whole conversation is kind of coming back into like that, breaking down that whole rule, all the structure, because like we truly are our own rule bearers. We have it all within us, yet we don't realize it. I think because we are so out of touch with feeling. We numb ourselves so much, or we're afraid of it. Why have we been so taught to, especially in the masculine?
Yes. And here's the thing. I firmly believe that more than ever, a lot of the thing is actually fearing what happens when they realize how powerful they are. So I actually believe that it's a lot of that, because when people realize how powerful they are, then they have a responsibility to do something with that. Right. And so for me, if I was to look at, you know, way back when I was like, oh my God, and you know, the fear and the limiting beliefs, and don't get me wrong, they still come up now and they're just a different level of those now. However, way back then, you know, it was like, I do this, then I've got to be willing to walk this line, because I know where I've come from. I know this blood, you know, the bloodline. I know this lineage. I know, you know, there was a deep knowing. And I think when there's gates to that, when we realize that, and then we go, am I willing to face that? Like what I said at the start. And then am I willing to do what is like bestowed on me to do, that I'm here to do, that is my soul contract, you know, whether you call it a soul contract, ikigai, whomever, right? Am I willing to then go and do what it takes and have the responsibility of carrying that out? And that, and I get it. I freaking get it because I felt it. And it's
Yeah.
like that fear of your own power. And we can talk about that in, you know, then the masculine and the feminine. It's like, that is where I'm seeing a lot of the beliefs and the conditioning and all of that come up too, rather than fear of not, like, yes, there's fear of not being good enough, fear of all of this. However, is it the mask behind actually the deep rooted seed of when I realize the power and potency of who I am at my core, at a cellular level, at a spiritual level, at a level that is beyond what we know to be true and correct right now in this moment in the human experience, then what happens on the other side of that? And are we willing to draw a line in the sand of that? It's just such a question, right? It's just such a, you know, is it the belief of not worthy, or is it the belief of when I realize, because I have a deep knowing? Like, the reason why I say this is because those in my force field and those that come into my vortex are very potent, powerful humans. So I see a lot of people that are this. And when I, like, and it happens because it's a reflection. So of course they're going to come into my world. And so on retreat, I'm like, 9 times out of 10, if we're going to look at, you know, percentages, they are fearing the power that resides within and what that means and what they're able to do with that. And then you can't turn back when you access that. You know, I often say now I'm on a big mission. I'm on a bold mission. This is fierce. Even if I did not want to, I could not stop. I've already opened. There's no turning back. Once you access, that's it, right?
You're right. You're so right. Like, I actually want to cry over this because that is it. We think
Courtney.
we use all these things as excuses, these limiting beliefs, but what are they really? They're excuses to not step into our power. We are creators. We have the power, yet there's all these reasons for why we have our limiting beliefs or blocks, whatever we want to call them.
Yes.
They're not real. It's like, just another excuse. They're just excuses, and it's stepping into our power. And I'm not stepping into my full power yet. I agree with you. Like, so it's like you're like, feel like you're shaking me right now. Like, step into your power, your true power. But you're right. Like, once you open this door, like, there's no turning back. But the responsibility factor is huge because it's so much easier to let life happen to you rather than you choose your life. It's all in our power.
And absolutely, Courtney. And to add another little like bit of salt and pepper on that, I also have this view when it comes to mum guilt. Now, am I saying that mum guilt doesn't exist? Of course. I lived a life where my career in the military or our armed forces saw me away from my eldest for a very long time. That is true mum guilt when you're like, I've literally got my son months away from my child because of my military career. I get that. I get that mum guilt is that is a thing. However, I also know that there are women hiding behind the label of mum guilt to not action what they must, to not action the potency and the power that they are here to do, and they're hiding behind that because it's like my kids. But then, you know, it's huge. And again, I'm speaking to a past version of me that used to put that in there unconsciously and consciously.
Well, and I think those are the lies that we tell ourselves as women, that we have to put everyone in front of us. This is where we do need to rise up as women and in our feminine, that say we have a right to our autonomy. We have a right to chase our dreams. We have a right to follow this fire inside of us. And we don't have to put everyone in front of us, and we don't have to feel guilty. But it's hard because we are nurturers. We are carers. We carry these children are a part of us. So it's that weird balance again. We got to come back to how that works, and it's going to work different for everyone.
100%. And you said like the right in it. And then so this is where I go, and it's our responsibility for it, because if we do not be that person, then we are carrying not we. Our children are then carrying this burden that mum loved me so much she had to lose herself in the process. Now, what story is that ultimately passing down? That in order to be the martyr means that's the greatest form of love. No, the greatest form of love is you go out and you create your best life and you show your children, you allow them to witness you in their greatness, so that, or you in your greatness, so that when they grow up, they don't go, in order to love my children deeply, I have to let myself go. I have to fade in the background. I have to lose every part of my identity, and that means she loved me. Like, that is, if we're going to talk about one of the greatest red flags as a mother, it's that. The burden that our children have to carry because we're hiding behind that.
The burden. Oh my goodness. I don't know how many times you hear people say, oh, I did this for you, or I gave you so much, or after all we've done for you, those kinds of words, that burden that puts on a child. And it's almost like we relish it's like we like to be the martyr. We want to, why do we want to be the martyr? Why would we want to be the victim when we can be the creator and the power behind our lives?
You know, Courtney, I also love to speak on it from a masculine as well. Think about how our men, and my husband talks about this for our warriors that come on retreat, our men that come on retreat, that the sacrifice that a father has to make, and that means he loves his family so much, the ultimate sacrifice, the willingness to work to their core, and that means they love and provide. What is that doing? Again, it's continuing to burden our continued generations that in order to love your family, in order to provide for your family, you must go to the nth degree where you lose who you are. You're no longer in a mental health, optimal mental health state. Like, do you see how that is a huge red flag? So the masculine's doing that, feminine's doing it. We all deserve to actually go, hang on a second, let's turn a light on a problem that is actually quite dark and grim if we're not, careful of that. And again, I'm putting my hand up as someone that did this in the past. Someone that for me, I come from that blue collar. I come from that space of to create more for your family. You had to do more. You had to work meant hard. Creating finances or buying your first home, that was going to be hard. Everything was going to be hard. And it's like, it's so interesting how these patterns went. And so I remember when I was with my eldest, when he was younger, I had 3 jobs. I was working in the military. I was nursing on the side. I was a PT on the side. I had all this other stuff. I was doing more because I thought that meant, and I was absent in home. I'm going to be brutally honest. I was completely absent, but I was like, no, because that means I am doing the thing, that means that I'm setting up their future, that means that I'm being the mother that was losing herself in the process. Like, it just goes, we see it everywhere. We either have it's either ourselves, our best friends, our colleagues, in the workplace, it's everywhere. And it's like, imagine if we all gave ourselves the permission slip and then had conversations where our friends and our partners and our colleagues or whoever actually called us forth to a new way, or it's not even a new way. It's just a realization of just like, hang on a second, I get to change this story if I wish.
Yeah. It comes back to the fact that we have the power to do it.
We have the power. And then we do that. We're showing them the new way. Again, we're going to go back to that conversation. One generation, this could all change.
I love that.
We fade it out in one generation if we want to.
I love that.
I know we've done that for our family. We've 110% done that for our family. Because now, even when I look at it from a place of parenting, from a place of conscious parenting, from a place of spirit, from a place of, finances, now I go, like, wealth, it's easy. It's abundant. It's the more I be, the more I can create, the more I sit in, again, once we start opening Pandora's box, that's really freaking interesting.
I love that. And I'm just kind of like, okay, how do my husband and I do this together? I think that's so powerful when we can bring that dynamic into your home together, because I mean, I will say we are definitely in a season or a cycle of I'm sacrificing more than you to provide for our family because it's like this competition of who can
Yes.
sacrifice more, and everyone's sacrificing. And that doesn't do anyone any good. There is so much more. We can embrace so much more harmony by doing what you're saying, by being in that place
Yes.
together and realizing our power together, which is so funny because like even my husband and I, we're both so aware of this, yet we're still so caught up in that,
Yes.
it's almost
It's
like that
so easy to go back
cycle.
to.
It's so crazy. So like we
It's
have
so
to
easy.
break
Yeah.
that cycle. How do we do that?
Yes. And, with what you've just said and continue to be aware of it so that when it creeps in, and I said when, not if, when it creeps in, because societally, how we're conditioned, how fast paced things are,
Yeah.
social media, everything we're consuming will attempt, if we're not careful and if we're not intentional about this, divert our path. And I think that is where, having discernment of everything, every conversation, everything we're watching, every person we're following, every, table that we're sitting at or not, everything is ultimately going to either be a disruptor and continue the path that we want, or be a distractor and go back to old ways. And we get to ultimately choose what that gets to look like.
Oh my goodness. I love this. I love this conversation so much. How do we work with you and your husband?
It's been great.
I'm like looking at the time. I'm like, oh my goodness, we have to wrap up. But like, how do we work with you and your husband to make these changes in our life? I know you guys do retreats, coaching, mentorship. I love that you work with families even. So how do we find you?
Yes. Oh my goodness, there is so much, Courtney. And for anybody listening in, just know that we have many arms and legs here. And often I will say, yes, sometimes we're known for running our retreats, and then often people go, no, they run amazing workshops and events. And then someone else will be like, oh, I go there for my business mentoring. So there's just so much exactly that. You can absolutely find me. I'm sure Court will pop it on the show notes and whatever else. However, you can find us on Instagram or on Facebook, and we're on TikTok. We're on all the things. So you can look me up at Nadine Muller. You'll find me there. And our men's work that is also does our couples work, that also does our women's events and everything like that as well. And that's Heart-Led Warriors. And you'll see we're always sharing each other's things and always, co-collaborating on a lot of things that we do here. And the team that we have here is just next level. When I say we bring spirit, we bring EI, we bring self-mastery, we bring so much, hence why it's called Heart-Led. We bring so much. When we operate from this space, right, and we operate cracked wide open, and we call in the most, I think it's one of my favorite things. When we enter, or when people choose to enter our world, not only do they, come in for healing and growth and development, all the things, it's the community most of all. And I love when people are finally connected with people that they go, oh, I found my people. Or without even doing healing and growth transformational work, they're like, this has just healed all my system wounds, right? And then they come and do, healing and retreats, right? So please know, whether you're at a stage of your entrepreneurial journey, or you're at the stage of, ground zero, you've just, you're in a new season and you're traversing something really big personally, or you're simply in a space of, I'm ready for my next evolution. I'm ready for my next, 2.0, 3.0, 10.0, whatever it gets to look like, please land in. We got you. All it takes is really just landing in, having a look at what we do. And it's a feeling. People move on a feeling. And for me, I always go, if you feel something, almost innately, almost viscerally in your body, you listen to that. The mind will go, no, that feels really scary. That feels really intimidating. That feels really deep, because it is. However, I wonder what happens when we do the work that and that you are feeling called to do.
Beautiful. Yeah, we can't, it's that feeling you can't explain. My mentor will always say to me, like, I'll be like, I don't know why this, she's like, yes, you do. Stop saying, I don't know why. You do. You feel it for a reason. We're being called to it. So.
Yes. Oh, I love that. And then, as a big part of what we do is it's it's couples, it's parents, because when we work on those, remember what I talked about, our mission is hugely about actually future generations and how it changes the dynamic for our kids in the future and kids, now kids. So generational repatterning work. And we know that when we go straight to the source of the parents, we're changing generations. So hence why we love our couples and parenting work and family work, because it's that, and we call that legacy. When we do legacy work on couples and parents, whether they're co-parenting or together, whatever it looks like, that is priceless. You can probably feel it in my voice. That is the work that is priceless, because it's separate, it's together, it's however it gets to look like, however it's that changes more than just this lifetime. It is beyond. It is generational repatterning. Again, if this you're feeling called to it, please do let me know.
I love that. I love thinking of our legacy as how are we leading our children? How are we leading them into these future, more capable versions of self that can heal and grow, as opposed to, we always think about legacy as like, let's leave them money, let's leave them things. It's like, let's leave them peace and the ability to grow and to ask questions and to expand and continue to heal, because it's not like we're going to leave them in the space that's just completely healed. They're going to have to do their own healing journey.
100%.
But let's give them the foundation to do it.
Yes, and let's do our best. As much as we said, we're still going to F it up at times. However, let us least F it up so that what they're healing through in their lifetime is as least to do with you, and there will be some to do with you, and the most to do with what they've called in and what their soul contract is about and what their human experience is meant to be for, rather than anything else that is in their backpack of life that they have to endure or traverse through because someone else couldn't, or someone before them didn't yet have the resources or the courage or the willingness or the bravery or the tenacity and resilience to actually go, I'm ready for this.
Yeah. Oh my goodness. I love it. Thank you.
Oh God.
I know. Thank you so much. No, I mean, you just opened up my eyes to so much today, even things I know, and it's just like needed to be said. I thank you. Thank you so much for today. And I can't wait to share this with everyone so they can find you.
Thank you so much, Courtney. You have a beautiful rest of so it's morning for you, right? It's evening, late for me over here. So you have an incredible start to this brand new week. Thank you for those of you that have tuned in and listened in, and I will speak with you very soon, my love.
And that's it for today's Intentional Living with Courtney Myers. Thank you so much for joining us, and thank you, Nadine Muller, for the beautiful and expansive conversation all about balance, the feminine, the masculine, everything we're doing as parents to grow and expand. It was just such a big conversation. If you want to work with Nadine, I'll put all the information in the show notes below. And as always, you can find Intentional Living with Courtney Myers and Intentional Media on our website. That's where you'll find our books, our courses, and everything else we have coming out soon. I'll talk to you later. Bye.